Okay, this is awesome. All right, Mr. Blaze. Good morning. Actually, want to welcome you to the very first, um, the second section of our trainings. And last week the we talked about the project terminologies, which we looked at lots of project management terms that are used around the world. We saw the matrix organization, we talked about the functional organization, we looked at the difference between project management and operation management. We also did lots of them. So today now, we want to take another direction and take a deep dive into project management proper. And I'm going to be making some introduction to you today about how the Project Management Institute organized their body of knowledge. Now, the book which carries the material that is approved for us to use as members of the Project Management Institute is called the PMBOK. And the PMBOK, that is the Project Management Body of Knowledge. The Project Management Body of Knowledge, it's a book that is reviewed every 4 years. A new edition comes into play. Like right now, we are in the seventh edition of the Project Management Body of Knowledge. I started being a member of the Project Management Institute when they were at the third edition. So I read the third edition, and ever since the updates have been coming on and on and on till this very day. So we are at the seventh edition. But something happened between the sixth and the seventh edition. Now, the sixth edition was discovered to be one of the best approach ever gotten. But they must review. Nothing's happened, so they wanted to review. They reviewed and got the seventh edition. But they couldn't do away with the seventh edition, the sixth edition, because the sixth edition is watertight. And now the seventh edition is into play, but what leads and guides foundationally is the seventh edition. Is the sixth edition. The sixth edition talked about 5 process groups and 10 knowledge areas, 10 professional areas that we must have hands on, that we must gain practical experience to pass the exam. And I can bet you about 70% of the project management professional exams comes from the sixth edition. Recently, I've been looking at the questions coming out. So 70% comes from the sixth edition. So I looked at this training. I said, no, it will not be nice taking you through the sixth edition while we miss lots of the beautiful things that are embedded in the sixth edition. So now we're going to go in the direction of a kind of digesting the sixth edition before we move into the seventh edition. So it's a military operation, and that's why I said at the end of this training, you'll be hot. I haven't done that. We will now take a look at the Agile methodology. Now that's PMI for you. PMI embedded the Agile methodology in the seventh edition and included a part of the scope for a project management professional to cover while preparing for their exams. So this single training makes you fit for any kind of project management role. So we'll go in that direction. So today we would have to start our training with the sixth edition. You're going to be patient, learn everything as been explained. Now, I want us to understand that project management is cascaded into 5 processes. It's broken down into 5 processes. Everything you do on the project is tied within these 5 processes. These are the 5 major process groups. And these process groups are further cascaded into 49 sub-processes. So if you can understand these major 5 processes and the inherent sub-processes, you can be the leader of any project around the world, whether it's a pharmaceutical project, be it LNG installation and construction, whatever, you just name it. And this is what we want to learn right now. So the very first process group among the 5 is called the initiating process. And under the initiating process, we have other sub-processes, about 2 of them. Then, after the initiating process, we have the planning, where we meticulously plan the project and come up with policies that will guide us all through. Once the project plan is out, we move into the next phase, which is the executing. Now the job is being directed, the job is being done. And here now we start gaining knowledge. In the process of executing, the next phase would come into play, which is the monitoring and the controlling process group. We would have to ensure that the job that is being done is following the plan. We are deploying the plan. And you know, unwanted changes actually compete for what we do on the project. So our job is to ensure that we are controlling, as we are monitoring it, we are controlling the project execution to the desired destination. So that's where the monitoring and controlling comes in. And finally, the last one is the closing process group. Here we close the project. Lots of things happen here. 1, we go in to close all the sub pockets of jobs, the sub projects individually. And we gather lessons learned. We archive them. We close the project formally, the overall project formally, and we receive acceptance from the sponsors, and we hand over the project. So this is just the background of the 5 sub-processes. We would have others. We will be able to break them down into the sub-processes so you can understand them. Now, on the initiating process, which is right from the conceptual phase of our project, there's something that we do and that you must be conversant with as a project manager, which is called the Develop Project Charter. And this Develop Project Charter is the number 1 thing when you have been contracted, when you have been consulted for a fresh project. This is what you do. You develop the project charter. And now, what is the project charter? The project charter a formal document that will, is the project or authorize a phase on the project. When we talk about authorize, which means there must be signatories giving you the right as a project manager to embark on the project. And upon the project charter, the project objectives are spelled out. What are we trying to achieve? And the authority level given to the project manager is also defined on the project charter. That's just like a 1 to 3 page document. And remember, when we talk about authority level, we could be looking at the kind of organizational structure, because it is the organizational structure that defines what kind of authority that has been given to the project manager. I know you know this, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah, give me feedback because I can't actually see your face. So
Okay.
yeah, so like I know you know what the functional organization is. Like I said, the functional organization is when the departmental head has more authority than the project manager, and the project it's a domain in a domain area, just maybe an electrical installation project, maybe civil works project. So that is that. So the kind of authority given to the project manager can be spelled out, whether it is full-time or part-time, or he's sharing power with the functional managers. Then this project charter actually provides you as a project manager the resources that would be required in a high level to achieve the project objectives. And once all these are being spelled out, what happens? The power is now given to you now to formally initiate the project and to continue. On the project charter, you have all the preliminary budgets, a high level. Things are not clear, but at least there's a speculation in a way. You have not done the planning, so you just want to go on, and you have a kind of tentative budget. You have the kind of tentative schedule. You have the conceptual understanding of the project was spelled out on the project charter. So it's a powerful document, and that's your first thing, your first baby on the project. The first baby you give birth to, that is the project charter. And it is for you to develop it. Now, talking about the project charter, you as a project manager would need certain documents, certain materials, certain expertise to be able to organize it. It's not going to fall from above. So what are the things needed for you to put this project charter together? You need all the business document, maybe the feasibility studies that is being carried out about the project, the market analysis, the needs analysis, the business cases, and all the justifications. So this is to say that you need all the business document. And if peradventure is a joint venture project, you would want to cite the agreement to know who is stronger than who is bringing what and who is not bringing what. So you need to see the contract that is talking about the parties that are on the project. And there's what is called the enterprise environmental factors. And I need you to understand the enterprise environmental factor. The enterprise environmental factor, as the name depicts, you are in an industry. Your project is in a domain, is in a knowledge area. It has its own knowledge area, rather. There are peculiarities in that territory. So what are those factors that are decisive in that territory? You know, pharmaceutical project would have its own rules and regulations. That is why we say the enterprise environmental factors. And now these enterprise environmental factors can be cascaded into two strata, external or internal. Internal could be you, your organization, your inclination about the environment, that the domain that the project is being constructed, and why is the external forces also. Now these are the enterprise environmental factors, because you must understand the government and the politics that is playing out there. You must understand the economics and the economy, because you're going to be making purchase for your project. So if you don't understand the market, how would you buy? How would you speculate? How would you make forecast on when to buy, how to buy, when to buy more and when to buy less? If a product, a particular member that will be used in construction would be out of market within a particular area, a particular time of the year, you are advised to buy and hold, though you will incur holding cost. So this is that. You understand? This is that. This is about the enterprise environmental factor. So all these are things that you would gather. That's why I'll tell you that a good project manager is someone who has knowledge in business and business analysis, is someone who can conduct due diligence properly, can go into the market and analyze the market, talk to vendors, and know how to buy right. And in this place, the 5 rights of procurement would have to come into play. And what are they? The right price, the right quality that you want to buy, matching with the right price, the right quantity, the right time, and the right place. Yeah. Then another input needed is the organizational process asset. Now we are talking about picking a project as our organization today. I want to use it as an example to talk about what the organizational process is all about. The organizational process asset, that is the organizational process asset, is like what makes us powerful in project management domain or in that territory. What do we have in house? What do we know? This could be our expertise, our subject matter experts that we have, their professionality. Certain times, our organizational theory, that is the way we behave, the way we conduct ourselves, the way we do our jobs, or maybe our organizational structure, and also the kind of templates we have, and our awareness to information technology. So these are things that we must put together. That is to say, we need good templates that can enable us design, come up with the right schedule. How do we conduct our estimates? How do we do time estimates? How do we conduct cost estimates and resource estimates? These are things that we must organize together for us to come up with a project charter. And once you have all this knowledge is being gathered, there are tools needed and techniques needed for you to make the right judgment. And one is how you interpret the data that are being gathered and translate them into information. Another one is the techniques you even use in gathering those data. And then your expertise in analyzing those data and bringing a decisive information from them. How do you analyze the cost to say it has to be $20 million, even if it's a rough order estimate? Because in this phase of the project, all our estimates are rough order estimates. They are tentative. But yet we still would have to continue with them. But we're going to plan better when we move on. So then we come up with, when we put all these things together, we come up with a project charter. Now we have a project charter. We have a budget being spoken about. Now we can understand that the project will last within 5 months. It's tailored in there. And then there's what is called assumption on project. These are kind of feelings we have of how things may likely turn out to be on the project. But they have not been proven. Why? Because the time that we think they would happen has not come. But yet, if they can come into mind, why not we jot them down? Why not we document them? And the document used to document all those assumptions is called the assumption log. So this becomes the project charter, and the assumption logs becomes our output. Now we have them as a number, the two documents from this sub-process. And we have it to show. This will guide us into the next phase of the project. Yeah. Is that nice? So that's that. Is that nice? And when you're putting your project charter together, remember your business justification. It is very important for you to justify, like a kind of cost-benefit analysis, to come up with some justification that this project will benefit us, the performing organization. Either we are getting a tangible benefit, that is a monetary benefit, or an intangible benefit, something like brand recognition, or expertise improvement, or more patronage in the industry. So these are things that we need to put on the project charter. So let's move on. I've talked about in the level of agreement, there are different kinds of agreements. One I want to talk about is the service level agreement. Service level agreement is not like a contract for purchasing product. Service level agreement is when somebody would have to come and carry out some services for you, and services like that have sometimes become to be difficult for you to measure satisfaction. So the kind of contract used in this phase is the service level agreement. So you look for those service level agreements that are in existence in that project amongst parties before you were contracted, so you can understand them and analyze the roles that individuals are obligated to play and what benefit will they get and the kind of letter of intent issued to them. Yeah, I'm learning so much, and I think you are learning too. So you have the project charter in that phase, and now you have your project charter to show us the document. Now what is next in the initiating phase? What is next? What is expected of us to do? We have to start identifying the stakeholders. Like I told us in the introductory class, stakeholders are those organizations, those individuals, people that can actually influence your project positively or negatively. And those people, individuals and organizations that can influence your project positively or negatively. Let me reiterate, your project can influence them positively or negatively, or they can influence your project positively or negatively. You identify them and you have them documented, okay, in a material called the stakeholders register. You have them cascaded there. The government may be one, the community that the project will be sited in is another stakeholder, and your project management team, your buyers, your sellers, and all of these people are your stakeholders. So you have to identify them, and they have varying level of authority on your project. You have to analyze them and gather certain level of knowledge about them and understand their interest rate and how much are they going to be involved on the project. And this actually enables your team to come up with the appropriate strategy of engaging with each of these stakeholders, or maybe engaging with these groups. So having said that, you still would need things. What are the things that will enable you to identify these stakeholders? And those things are called the inputs. Remember the project charter that you got in the develop project charter phase, sub-process. It's your number one document that you would need, because you have to go in there and look at the pocket of jobs that are being speculated and try to understand the industry, and from there now you would be able to know who and who could be instrumental to your success. Bless you. So business documents, also the business documents are needed. Now, as we're talking about develop project charter before the identify stakeholders phase, something would happen. You could have started gathering some strategies, some kind of plans about how to execute the project. If there is any in existence, that too should be consulted. You go back to the agreement, you take a look at the enterprise environmental factors, you reanalyze if things have changed in the industry. And also you taking a look in-house, if you now have a better process of doing the job. All these areas, when you put them together, you can identify the stakeholders. In organizational process asset, it could be your lessons learned, the knowledge gathered in previous projects that had been archived. You go back to expunge them and analyze the lessons learned. If it's a project conducted in a certain area of the country, and this your new project will be cited there, you have to go back and see the historical informations and the lessons learned, and to analyze them to know the stakeholders involved in the previous project. That's your place to start from. What are you doing? Majority of the tools and techniques needed here is how you gather data and how you analyze data. and how you'll be able to represent those data or to present the data, and how you'll be able to organize the stakeholders. You put them together in a war room, or if they are virtual, you have to facilitate and have meetings with them. Your inclination to be in this domain of data gathering, data representation, data analysis, and facilitating the meetings. And from this, you get a stakeholders register. You now know the educational aspect of the government is the area that is in charge. So which means the Minister for Education is your number one stakeholder. Your sponsors could be coming from a particular sector in the organization, a particular sector in the government, and you just have all these, and now you now know who are your stakeholders and the community that they want to site that building. If it is a construction project for things like library, so you now know who are to supply the books, where you're going to be buying from, and when you put all these things together on your project stakeholders register, you now can see your stakeholders. And now you have the stakeholders register. Don't you feel that the project charter, which was rather your initial project management plan, in a way, should be updated? There's a project register, stakeholders register now, so we have to get in there to update it. So that's where we would say project management plan updates becomes your output. The project document now will be updated because you have new documents created. Yeah. So in all the analysis, you identify their roles, right? You identify their roles, and like I said, their levels of involvement may vary, and that may depict their authority level, the kind of power that they have. And remember, the man who pays for the project, his authority would be so much, because if he says no, no, no today, there will be no advancement. Okay? You know, I like going on to do my explanations before I move on with my slide, but I think let's still move on. So when you now have the stakeholders identified, you need to do certain things that is called like the power, the interest grid, the power and the influence grid, or the impact and the influence grid. And this is called the stakeholders cube. Now, what is the power and the influence grid? The power and the influence grid is like the authority that the stakeholder will have. And how much can he influence your project? Can you see, as against how much he will be able to influence your project? Then another one is the power and the interest grid. You are not looking at his power, the power that he has, and how interested is he on the project. You are analyzing all these things as you look at the stakeholder. You are analyzing him to say, oh, this man is so powerful, but he's not interested in the success of this project. Then the impact and the influence grid. You want to know what you are doing with this stakeholder. How much can he impact on the project? You may want to put some financial some financial justifications to his actions. If he says no, we may be delayed with 2 days, and this may translate into the loss of $20 million. And what is his influence? So there are different models, and you map out all these strategies, and you'll be able to analyze the stakeholders and to know how to deal with them. There are some stakeholders that would require urgency in their approach. Certain times, immediate attentions are required. When they ask you a question, you need to supply it immediately. So you need to know them. And there's what is called legitimacy. And this is, you are looking at it. Yes, this stakeholders is actually strong. It's a strong stakeholder. But how appropriate is his involvement? And direction of influence. You look at it, is he somebody that is on top? Is somebody that is below? Is somebody that is at the middle level of the project? Is he a end user? Is he a sidewalk person? Then you prioritize. In this prioritization, you are doing their, are coming up with an hierarchy of their authority level. And you have it on the register. Yeah. So finally, you now have the output. The output is what? Your stakeholder register. Your stakeholders register. Now we will have all the stakeholders identified and the kind of communication requirement. What is expected of them? How are they affected by the project? And what is their power and influence level on the project? Even in this phase, you might have discovered what was not initiated well, and you may seek for a change. And that is where you need the change request. The change request is being sent to the project governance, the change management board. When they look at it, and if it is something that is good, they accept it. If it is not good, they tell you, we're not going to integrate this, just forget about it. So, those project documents that will be updated, like I said, the issue log, the assumption log, last time I explained what the issue log is. Under the assumption log, we have the risk register, because certain risks can be identified in this level too, and also the issue log will be here. So this brings us to planning. So we have stakeholders register and the project charter as our major output from the initiating phase. Can you understand me?
Yeah.
Right. So let's move on into planning proper. As you can see the diagram, I know it may not be clear where you are, but you can see that we have some sub-processes under the planning, and the planning phase is the longest phase. This is the difference between waterfall and agile project. In agile, they don't do this planning so much. In waterfall, we take time to plan. Can you see the sub-activities, the sub-processes under planning? We have the develop project management plan, we have the plan scope management, we have collect requirements, we have define scope, we have create WBS, plan stakeholders management, define activities. All right? Please, if you can, if there's a way to reduce the noise at the background.
No, it's not my noise. Oh. It's I think they are cutting. They are learning the grass.
Oh, that's beautiful. So what we'll do
And let
from
me
your own
close the
end,
window. Let me close the
just
window.
from your own end, try and mute. Let's see, mute for now.
Okay,
When you
okay,
want
okay,
to,
okay.
when you want to respond, you can unmute. So yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. So these are things. Plan quality management also is there. Plan resource management. Estimate activity resources. Plan. So once you have all these plans, why would you not be successful on the project? So now let's take a look at them. The first one, which is the project management plan. What is the project management plan? What is the develop project management plan? Let's use the word develop, which is a sub-process, which is what you must do. You must develop project management plan for your project. And like I have here, that is the process of defining, the process of you putting together a coordinated plan that will help you integrate all the components of the project and how to execute them. It's a comprehensive document that outlines the basis of all the project work and how the work will be performed. Certain times they may be at the summary level or detail. Now the project management plan has baselines like cost baselines, schedule baselines, resource baselines. All these baselines are the approved version of your sub plans. Yeah. So you want to develop project management plan. What are the things you need? You're not going to start afresh. You're not going to reinvent the wheel. You have to go back to your initial documents, which the major one of them is the project charter. Then outputs from other processes. Like I said, as you are putting the project charter together, you can be gaining knowledges about cost, knowledges about schedule. So now you still would have to bring all these things, and you still would have to reanalyze the enterprise environmental factors. And also the organizational process asset. Asset is what you have that is a plus to you, that gives you an advantage, that makes you more influential and better. That's why we call them organizational process asset. What are the processes of doing this particular job that you have? The template. So let's move on to take them one step at a time, okay? What do we have here? Okay, we have the tools and techniques, the same expert judgment. You still would be talking, if it's a civil engineering project, you have an architect as your expert, you have a civil engineer as your expert, you have the piping and the water resource guy as one of your experts, you have the electrical engineer as one of your experts. When you put this team together and also couple with the roofing guy, you will have good knowledge about the project. You will now start gathering data from them, directly or indirectly. Yeah. Then you rely on your interpersonal and team skills. Remember, you are leading people to get knowledge out from them. So from all these areas, the civil engineer has spoken, the architect has spoken, the quantity surveyor has come up with some knowledges, the land surveyor too. So you now have some knowledges, some plans that you cannot bury in the project management plan. So the project management plan becomes your output of the developed project management plan process. So in the 7th edition, we are dealing with input. What do I need to get certain things done? Then we are dealing with tools and techniques. How can I handle them to get the best of the things I have gotten? And what would I have at the end if I handle them well? That is the output. So your output becomes the project management plan. Like I said, the baseline is there, the subsidiary plans. What are the baselines? The baselines could be the scope baseline, or the schedule baseline, the cost baseline, the performance measurement methods that is accepted or approved, and all your subsidiary plans. So you use this as guide for the project execution. And remember, the project management plan is a formal document that is either approved or not approved. And once it's approved, it becomes the guide to everything you do on the project. Yeah. Talking about subsidiary plans. There are some kinds of subsidiary plans that are placed here for you. We have the scope management plan. How would I manage the work needed and only the work needed? We have the requirement management plan. Now, what is requirement? You know, people conceptualize the project. They thought of it before you were contracted. So you have to talk to them. These are the stakeholders. You want to talk to them and to understand their expectations. And also to check the market to understand what is needed. So while you're doing this, it's called you are collecting requirements. It's very important. So we have lots of them. The stakeholders management plan, we have the change management plan, configuration management plan. All these things are things that we will talk about. And that's why I bet you, at the end of this training, you'll be there. Yeah. So the next sub-process is the plan scope management. The plan scope management is in the scope management knowledge area under the planning process group. Now, what is plan scope management? This is the process of you creating scope management plan. Now you are making documentation of how the project and the product scope will be defined and how they will be validated and how they will be monitored and controlled till the end of the project. Remember, scope is the work needed and only the work needed to achieve the project outcome. And under scope, under project scope, we have the project scope and the product scope. That's why you can see them. It's how the project and the product scope will be defined, validated, and controlled. And this gives you guidance and direction and how you'll be managed, how you'll be able to manage the project to ensure that you achieve the speculated criteria for acceptance. Okay, like I said, product scope and project scope are all part of the project scope. Okay, the product is the features, the things you see at the end of the project. If it is a bridge construction, at the end of the day, you now will see the rails. The length of the rails could be there. The wideness of the road can be measurable. The color of the paintings and how it will perform, how it will operate. All these are the features of the product. So these are what guides us to now start looking inward for the kind of work that is needed for us to accomplish and deliver that product and deliver that service or the result that is needed from us. And when you're doing that, there is a word that is called gold plating, and I need you to avoid it with every means possible. What is gold plating? You know, there are times that you want to impress. You just want to impress your stakeholder and you want to give them more. You want to add bells and shakers. You want to change the paintings to something more, fanciable. In project management, we disallow that. Because everything you do is placed on money. Everything you do is based on quality and time. If at the end of the day, what you said you want to do that is away from the approved project management plan is being rejected, whose money would you use for rework? So we avoid rework. That's why I'm encouraging you to avoid gold plating. Gold plating, you're trying to shine up certain things, polish things, to be as bright as gold, so to be attractive. But these are things that may not be in the project scope. So another word is the scope creep. Scope creep is unwanted changes coming into the project. Yeah, you don't want that. You don't want unwanted changes coming into your project, unauthorized changes. You don't want to start doing unauthorized work, adding things to the scope. So scope creep is when unauthorized changes come into the project, made by you allowing or not being able to manage them. So catch these two words: gold plating to be prevented, scope creep to be prevented when you are talking about the scope management. Yeah. So the scope management plan, we now have it. That becomes our output. It becomes our output. And how we'll be able to manage all the requirements that we will collect. The requirement management plan also. So these two becomes our output. We now have these documents. We now have these knowledges. We now have these policies and procedures written somewhere of how the job will be done, how scope will be managed, and we move on to the next area. In course of talking, I talked about collect requirements. It's a sub-process. And now in this process, what do? You want to determine. You want to be able to document. And how you will be able to analyze the stakeholders' needs and their requirements and obtain it from them. Because these requirements are things that you will put together to come up with the scope statement. A particular stakeholder could say, I need the building to have a lift. Wow. You write it down. It's a requirement. You have collected it. Another one is saying, let the lift be bought in Nigeria. You write it down. Or let the lift be prefabricated in Nigeria. You have all this written down. You look at the government. What is the government saying about such a construction project? You have it written down. What are your civil engineers, your architects, your business personnel saying about the market? You want to know. So you have all these requirements written down. And remember, all these things are things that you will juggle into a particular statement to have your scope statement. I think I'm going to bring my camera down in a way. So let me see if I can push it backward. So certain times when I'm demonstrating with my hands, you would see my hands. But the background is dark a little. Alright, but let's manage it, okay? It's good to see the hands of, because the hands certain times can command some hidden knowledge and you never can tell. Okay, so in this process, you look at the significant roles in success and how you'll be able to obtain that in the overall project. You look at the role of the schedule, the role of the budgeting, the risk factors and the quality specifications, and the resource planning, and how they are closely linked to these requirements that you are carrying, these requirements that you are collecting. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you have your requirement documentation and your requirement traceability matrix. This is another new word, but I'll talk about it. But before that, let's take a look at what is needed for us to obtain this requirement. We need to cite the project charter. We need to cite the project management plan and also the business documents and also the agreements entered, and reanalyze the enterprise environmental factors and the process, the organizational process assets. And also, we need to rely on an inherent expertise and some tools to be able to achieve the requirements documentation. We need to rely on the experts that will be on the project. Our stakeholders too would be consulted. We will come up with good ways of gathering the data from those data and still make our decisions and make them very well. And also, we have to rely on our communication skills. These are our interpersonal skills, our motivational skills, the way we influence team members. And we may come up with a context diagram. And and also a prototype. What is prototype? Prototype is like when you have a mop-up design of the entire project, but this is like a kind of design that you can carry and place on the table. When you get to a construction project, certain times they make a building with cardboards and papers and they place it on their desk. Every day they can see it because it's a smaller version of the actual project. They want to be able to see it beforehand. So that's why prototype is always good for you to, as they are talking about what they want to see, you are coming up with a prototype, you are creating it, maybe with cardboard, with some steels, putting it together so you can have that. Seeable, touchable, and it will guide your project. Now, let me check if the requirement traceability matrix is explained somewhere, so I'm not going to be repeating myself. All right. Okay, I've explained interpersonal skills. Let's see. Data gathering. Okay, you know the word benchmarking. Benchmarking is like you want to look into the market and you take a look at a particular project that was embarked on in your city. And you take a look at the features and you say, mine will be 70% better. Or maybe because of my lack of resources, mine will be 20% less. You are benchmarking, right? So that's that. Then, you now know what you need to do, okay? Like, in the form of talking to these stakeholders, you are expected to group their kind of ideas in a way, similar ideas. You may want to box similar ideas together. And what is that? That is mind mapping. Oh, this particular stakeholder is talking about the lift. This particular stakeholder is talking, if it is a bottled water design project, this particular stakeholder is saying that the cover has to be blue. So all the stakeholders that are talking about the cover, you have them grouped in a particular area. And those that are talking about the label, you have them grouped. You are organizing their thoughts in a particular way so you can manage them very well. Okay? So another word is the affinity diagram. It's also a way we use in organizing large ideas. We use it to group large ideas and break them down in an assorted way so we can further review and analyze them. So affinity diagram enables you to organize large ideas. This may be an examination question, so you just have to have it buried in your head. Right, we're moving on. All right, so we talked about the prototype, and let's move on to the next. All right, okay, so the output, like I said, the requirement documentation. Now the requirements are being documented. You now have all the knowledges of what the stakeholders want to see. You may have your requirement documents broken in subheadings like stakeholders and their business requirements. What are their acceptance criteria? Their quality requirements, the project objective, their organizational impact, their legal or ethical compliance, requirement assumption and constraints. All these are broken down in it. But not in every project you may have all the subheadings. In some projects you may have more. In some projects you may have less. All right? That is why you will be conversant with tailoring of project when we move to the the 7th edition. I'll talk about tailoring, so you know that for every new project you're going to be retwigging your materials and be coming up with a design that will better suit the groom for the wedding that is approaching. So that's that. So requirement traceability matrix, like the name implies, requirement and traceability. It's like a chart you place on the board that you come up with. Remember when we talked about the context diagram or the mind mapping? We organize them in a way that all the people that are saying bottle cover, we group them. All those that are saying label, we group them in a different way. So in this requirement traceability matrix, you can now have a requirement traced to the stakeholder that wants it done in a certain way. So once the requirement is being created, you come up with a table and you link all the requirements back to their sources. And this will help you to manage the project scope and the changes What are the questions to ask here? Who is the original stakeholder that provided this requirement? Why was the requirement added? And then you give a description of the requirement and where you are, the current status of the requirement. If it is completed, if it is in progress, if it is something that has been delayed or cancelled. So you play with all this. And then, like I tell you, you can see that the project management is becoming more visible. With this knowledge, you can manage a nuclear construction project. Is that easy? Is that simple? Yeah. Because you have the how now. Theirs is just to tell you the what, you supply the how. It doesn't matter the industry. You mustn't be a civil engineer to manage a civil engineering project. You, as a project manager, you'll be able to manage civil engineering project better than the civil engineer. Because on civil engineering project, the civil engineer has lots of people to deal with. And that's where your expertise is coming in. Let's take a look at defined scope. We've been talking about scope. So we want to talk about how we'll be able to define the scope. In the definition of scope, what are we doing? We will develop a detailed description of the project and the product. Like the project is about the work and only the work needed. The product is about the features that the product want to create and only the features needed, nothing more. This is the scope. And we want to come up with a detailed descriptions of them. And want to, at the end of the day, we'll have what is called the project scope statement, which is a baseline. Because the project scope statement is critical to the success of the project. And in it, we have all the assumptions, all the constraints that are documented. And the documented during initiating, we want to look at the constraints. Remember we talked about constraints the other day, and then we now enlist the triple constraints. We talked about scope, cost, quality, resources, risk, and so on and so forth. So that's to remind you of what we have said. Okay, so the output becomes the project scope statement. And what are the things needed? We need the project charter as our input. We need the project management plan. We need the project documents, the enterprise environmental factors, and the organizational process assets. When we go in there, we will be able to understand what is realistic and what is not realistic. And we don't want to put what is not realistic in our project. Do you want to do that? No. And our tools and techniques to be relied on: one, the expert judgment, the data analysis, the decision making, and our interpersonal and team skills. Then how do we analyze product? So at the end of the day, we come up with two outputs. One, the project scope statement. Now this is just like a one paragraph description of all the talks, of all the needs, of all the decisions. One paragraph or two paragraphs decision. Can you see that? Somebody who sees it in a run will be able to say, oh, this is what they are talking about, right? Yeah, that is that. That is that. Then the project document will be updated. Remember, all the agreements too will be updated. The consortium, if there are consortiums, if there are no contracts, the new contract will be updated, and so on and so forth. I'm learning so much. Yeah. So in product analysis, we want to understand the product that the project will create in detail. If it is a service, what services, what results we're going to create at the end of the day. And certain things we use to want to get this done amongst the tools is like the breakdown structure, the product breakdown structure. I'm going to use something that is depictable to us here. I want to use a bottling project. In a bottling project, can you kindly unmute and tell me how many areas we can talk about a bottling project? Maybe like the cover, certain things. Can you talk about it? Just kindly unmute.
Yeah, you said what?
I said in a bottling project, a bottling like a water bottle. Your project is now to manage a water bottle. So the features, the different things on a water bottle that you think can be distinctively created, that somebody may want his opinion to be on, could be what and what.
Um, how to the package, how to package it, how to label it,
Okay.
how to produce the bottle. I mean, like when it comes to the quality control and assurance and all, the supply chain,
Okay.
the logistics that are involved,
Yeah, yeah,
the market segment.
you have just done well. Do you know what you have just explained? You have explained the project scope. But now the product scope will be the cover, the label, the shape of the bottle, what quantity can it contain, the color of the bottle. So you break this down. This becomes the product breakdown structure. When we want to design the cover, it's a different pocket of work, right? Then now we now start taking a look at the supply chain. We now start taking a look at the materials needed for the cover. We now start taking a look at who. So this is about that. Thank you very much. That shows that you are there. So the project scope statement is your final piece that is being created. And now in the project scope statement, what are the things included? The product description, the goals of the project, the identified risk, the project and the product acceptance criteria, the project constraints and inclusions, and exclusion. Exclusions are things that must not be on the project. State it. If there are certain things that can turn some people off, if they see it on the bottle, state it clearly. Let it be known that that should not be part. Those are the project exclusions. So this brings us to the next one, which is the work breakdown structure. Now, what is the work breakdown structure? It is the hierarchical decomposition of the project scope into smaller and more manageable packages. Now you are breaking the project scope to smaller and more manageable packages. So where is the project scope? You are calling it out from the project scope statement. That's one paragraph, that 2-paragraph statement, that 3-paragraph statement about the project. You want to subdivide it. Now you see that the cover, the label is out. You want to break the label, what and what is needed to get it done. I have a diagram here that is, I think from your own end, it may not be too clear, but let me see. It may not be too clear. But what are we saying? We are talking about a particular project, like the bottling which we've been using. You are designing it for a bottled water, right? In a particular territory. The work breakdown structure will be like, what is needed to achieve the cover? What is needed to achieve the bottle itself? What is needed to achieve the label? What is needed to ensure that we get what is required of us done? For instance, I'm going to use a construction project, a construction of a housing. Now let's break it down to first, bush clearing and site preparation. Number 2, foundationing. Number 3, civil works. Number 4, piping and electrical installation. Number 5, roofing. Number 6, finishing. Now let's pick the roofing. The roofing too can be further subdivided into what? The buying of woods, cutting of woods, consulting the roofing engineer, transporting wood, installation of trusses, placing roofs, placing ceilings. Can you see all these are smaller and more manageable activities under the roofing aspect? So at the higher level, what we have is roofing. Even in finishing, we have paintings, installation of lighting systems, installation of procurement of couches, kitchen utensils. All these things are sub work packages. So when you break all the work needed, it will be easy for you to define them, because now you now know them. You know how long it will take the man to transport the wood to the site. It's easy, you can plan it. You can come up with the time estimate and also the financial estimate. If the city is jammed, you would know how long it will take him to move from a particular end of the city to the project site. And you say, okay, give and take 4 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours, because you know you can manage and plan for that pocket of job. Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay, I want to make an advice to us. Okay, I know that certain times when the class is remote, it's online, you may want to still be in the house and achieve certain things. Okay, whatever you are doing, try and
I'm
follow my voice.
I'm sitting down.
Because
I've not gone anywhere. I'm looking at my
no, no,
laptop
no.
and
Thank you for that confirmation. Okay, just keep
now
to
I'm
it.
looking at you.
It's gonna do you well, because I've had the experience, like I told you about some of my trainees, that they put to their mind that they will come back and listen to it. They don't bother understanding it. But at the end of the day, listening time, they will still want to do another thing, that they will listen to it again. When I listen to it again, I will understand better. In by so doing, they will not pay full attention. Time is going, and all of a sudden the aim is defeated. Thank God you are different. So that is that. When we create the work breakdown structure, we now have what is called the scope baseline, and the project document will be updated. What is the tool? What is the skill needed? Decomposition. We dey break work down. That's, we are just breaking the job down. Okay?
Yeah.
So let's move on. The inputs are inputs we are conversant with: the project management plan, like the scope management plan, the product document, the project scope statement, the requirement documentation, the enterprise environmental factors, and the organizational process asset. These are inputs. So when we go into this document, we will be able to know, fetch out the scope statement, and now we are breaking it down into smaller, more manageable package, and at the end of the day, we are having what? Scope what? Baseline. That's your catch-up word. Scope baseline. Scope baseline. So scope baseline. Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, the network took me out, man. And let's move on. The network has been so friendly today, and so shall it be till we finish our trainings. I'm coming. Okay, it's loading. The slide is loading. It's loading. Give it time to load. It's taking time to load. I'm going to get a student, and you will teach too. Some classes you will take, okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Uh-huh. So that will help you to come up to speed. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I've just changed the internet again, and I think we would stop where we have reached. All right, let's
Okay.
call it a day there. Hmm?
Yeah.
So we will not lose interest. This particular material that we are working on is about 260 something slides, so we've only done 36. And once we are through, we have lots of other slides to cover up. So that is that. Just get ready for the military operations. Let me end the recording.